adventurers, and welcome to another installment in my Legend of Kelamentura series. Different setup in this video. I'm trying to play a bit of a different setup or a new location for running my games. Normally I'm upstairs in my office. I've been moved down to the living room because I'm close. One, I'm closer to the router, and two, I can stick an Ethernet cable in. Having Wi-Fi issues with that, so still set up from last night's one shot. But I thought I would just have finished my notes on the Republic of Ambarino. I've already done a video on the Council of Mentura and the Salazar dynasty. And now I've finally got stuff together for the Republic of Ambarino. Just a bit of a recap. The Republic of Ambarino is the third and final major power on Kelamentura. During the Pangean War, that's the Pangean War, the Dynasty Council War, the Republic were a neutral party. They didn't join in the war to fight, but they did supply material and supplies to both sides equally. They just supplied them both with whatever they needed. In the war, they didn't supply anything that was directly for use in the war. So they didn't supply weapons or armor or anything to make weapons and armor from. They mainly supplied like food and aid and like medical stuff. Nothing that could actually be used to fight, because that would have made them that would not have made them neutral. But that was their role in the war. So Republic of Ambarino, in my head, to give a bit of context, they are similar to sort of colonial America, so roughly historically, somewhere between the American War of Independence, the American Civil War, that kind of an area. That's my basis on them, for them rather. So they are the only democratic system of government on Kelamentura, because the council, yes, it's a council, but it's a family. There are a collection of noble families, and it's a hereditary system. It's a succession-based polyarchy. Once you're in, you stay unless the council votes you out or you step down. The only way to get in is to be voted in by the council. That's how they work. And then the Salazar dynasty, well, it's a monarchy. They have the empress. You hear my dog moving in the background here. She was on a seat and she just moved on the floor behind me here. But yes, so the Republic is the only democratic government. The government is formed from elected representatives from the 14 territories that make up the Republic of Ambarino. I'll go through each territory in a bit. But the elected representatives form their own Senate type thing. There is no president, there is no prime minister, there's no figurehead. They have the Senate, and they're the ones who make the decisions and make the rules. As far as culture goes, it varies across each of the territories. They are religious. They do worship the pure ones. But some of them are atheist, and some of them worship their own gods. They make their own little shrines and do their own worship. It's similar to what is in the council, but the council is like 99% pure ones. Ambarino's, I don't know what the percentage is, but they're a mixture of religion and non-religious. They're also an industrial power. A lot of manufacturing, a lot of industrial revolution type stuff going on there. And that's a combination of technology that comes out of the dynasty and magic and magical enchantments that come from the council and from their own inventors and own minds. So that's how they're able to become a manufacturing superpower. They're able to use the sort of the machinery and the technology and enhance it with magic to create effects of the steam engine, that sort of a thing. and they do produce goods for sale in the dynasty and the council. Now, post-war, in this sort of peace that we're in at the moment, that yes, they are a they because of their industrial experience, they are used to arm and produce weapons and armor for the dynasty and the council. They don't really have contracts for this. Well, they do to an extent. Well, that's what they do. They were part of the sort of rearming, if you will, of both these nations after the war. Was okay. Well, they came together, shared their technology, there's electrical technology, and what have you. And then the dynasty and the council came through as well. Here's how you can enhance these with magic. The Republic took all of that and produced better weapons and better armor, and this is where you get the firearms that are used, as they're designed by the dynasty, enchanted by the council, and produced, if you will, within the Republic. That's kind of how things work. And as far as the military goes, they don't have there is no central military within the Republic. They don't have an army. There's no Republican army, if you will. But if needs be, each territory can raise their own militia. And they do keep a small standing militia for just general policing requirements. But they raise them into their own militia. And each one is unique to the territory. And they do have a small navy. Again, there's no need for them to have a massive navy. But they do have one. And this one, because I guess that they're a bit of an industrial power, they have sort of a bit of an industrial revolution. They actually have the largest proportion of steel ships. The dynasty and the council both have navies, but they're primarily wooden ships. They do have one or two steel ships, or steel hulled or steel plated. The Republic are the only power that have full steel ships. So they have full steel ships and steam powered ships as well. So we're starting to move away from the age of sail. Again, I appreciate if anybody out there watches anything you know about history, I am pulling stuff from like hundreds of years apart and throwing it together. So I apologize if that causes any mental stress, or why are you doing this? It's a fantasy world. There's magic and dragons. Fucking deal with it. But that's a brief overview of them. But I'm going to go over each of the territories. Now, there's 14 of them, so bear with me on this one. First up, we have the territory of Adelphi. It's on the eastern coast, sort of around the sort of... Again, these, on a map, these would be... Each one looks like a massive island, a massive landmass. Again, if you think of the United States, it's kind of the vibe I'm giving off here. So on the eastern coast, sort of in the middle of the country, middle latitude, we have the territory of Adelphi, with the capital city of Roanoke. It's the site of the Republic. That is the seat of power. That's where the capital is, the capital. South of that, we have the territory of Rhodesia. It's also on the eastern coast, but it's the southern eastern coast. Not the furthest south, but it's far south. And the capital city of Ironbound. And that is where the Republic manufacture their warships, or their ships. Massive shipyard. That's where the steel ships were conceived and built. It's very hot and very humid. So again, based on that kind of off Louisiana, North Carolina, this sort of hot and humid part of the United States. We're not quite into Texas where it's dry and hot. This is sort of the hot and humid. That's my vibe for them. And then on the north side of the eastern coast, we have territory of Coulter. Capital city of Timberfell. It's a logging city. And it starts off warmer in the south, where it borders with Adelphi. But the further north you go, the colder it gets. Kind of like New York, Boston. The further north you go on the eastern seaboard, those sort of states, if you will. You further south, they're quite pleasant, but you go north, it gets quite cold. That's them. And then the north of Ambarino is the Great Northern Territory. It's the vast northern cap. It just caps the entire thing. It's the entire north. It goes from east to west. It's this vast cap that sits on top of the Republic, and it's like a buffer between the Great Wastes, which is the north, the Arctic. It's what I call the Arctic on Kelamentura, or the Great Wastes. It's a great buffer between the Republic and the civilization that's there, and the harshness of the Great Wastes and any creatures that come down from there. Then we also have, we go through the middle bits. I have a few West Coast ones, but we'll go through a few that are sort of scattered throughout the middle. So I've done the East Coast. We'll do the West Coast. We'll do the East Coast and the Northern Cap. We'll sort of dot in the central bits. We'll get the Southern Cap, and we'll get the Western Coast. Next up, we have the territory of Newtonia. It's Central Territory, and it's the industrial centre. Capital city of Terra. It's an industrial and technological marvel of the Republic, and was a dynasty there, because it is comparable to Turok. It's just off the coast, so it's the first central territory once you get away from the coast. And this is where you find like the universities, this is where you find the universities and the learned people and the learned individuals. This is where it's like the think tank is, and this is where the ideas come from, and the most industrial power is. And there's an NPC in my campaign, Professor Theseus, the eccentric tinkerer. This is where he's from, just to give some context for my players. Then we have one of the larger territories is of Caledonia. It's again another central territory. Capital city is Caliban, and it is effectively it's effectively a breadbasket, vast, open stretch of land that's used for farming and agriculture, that sort of livestock, crops. That's basically all that comes out of there. It's like the bread, it's like the greengrocers of it, if you will. Then we have the southern cap of Ambarino is Isabella, the territory of Isabella. Or the Great Southern Territory. You have the Great Northern and the Great Southern. Sometimes known as the territory of Isabella. The Southern Cap, and the capital city is Port Isabel, which is the southern tip. Right at the southern tip, in my head, is kind of like Gibraltar at the very bottom of Spain. In my head, that's where it's like. It's mostly it's the dry and arid state, so it's far enough south. The coastal regions might be a wee bit huge. It's kind of, you're getting sort of Texas, if you will, for geography here, where it's dry, it's hot, and there's very little rainfall from where it is. A good chunk of it's desert, with Port Isabel right at the south, and you have other settlements nearby, but it's mostly a vast desert, if you will, and Isabel right at the tip. So the southern tip, the southern checkpoint, if you will, for anyone sailing that way. Next, we get to, I'm going to jump to the west coast. Move on to, only two on the west coast. That's right, I only picked two. We have the territory of Anaheim. It's on the west coast, the southern west coast. Capital city of Wilder, and that's also a port city. And this is where exports go from the capital republic to the dynasty. So instead of exports going around the council, they just go from the republic direct. And then the northern western coast is the territory of Great Pines. It's a vast, vast wooded state, or territory rather. This is what happens when you say, I'm based in the United States, sticks in your head. It's a vast woodland, and the capital city or town is Whiskey. It's, because of where it is, it's on the western coast. It's partially shipbuilding, but It also is a brewing city as well. So it's one of its big exports and main producers. It builds ships, and they make whiskey and beer to go on the ships, either for sale or for the sailors. Going back to the Central Territories, we have the territory of Granite. As the name would suggest, it's a rocky terrain. It's a northern mountain range, capital city of Rockhart, and it's a mining territory. So a lot of rock, a lot of very high quality stone and rock comes out of here and moves and is moved across the Republic, and possibly even around the globe as sees fit, as is needed. Next up is another central territory, the territory of Bronte, Bronte, as in the Bronte sisters. It's another central territory of grasslands. Again, it's sort of a farming and industry territory, or the capital city of Hartbourne. Now I talked about, where is it? Caledonia. That is also a farming and agricultural one, but that's eastern. Bronte is the western side. So one supplies the east, one supplies the west, and they kind of overlap in the middle. So that's where you have the two of these things. Next, we have Eastbourne. Border of the Great Northern. It's a vast, cold state. It's an inland, and there's a lot of inland lakes and inland water systems, and it's a freshwater fishing site. So you have the east and west coast of the saltwater fishing. This is a freshwater fishing state. So they do that's a lot of their money and how they make their money. Then we have, that's sort of on the border of the Great Northern. It's quite far north, very cold. Then we have the territory of Ultima. It's a south-central territory, arid climate. It's kind of sort of just on the northern border of the Great Southern Cap, or territory of Isabel. It's fairly dry. There are some grasslands, but it gets sort of drier in places and quite arid. And it's known as the Stable of Ambarino. This is where all the horses that pull wagons are basically come from, or the militaries use. Even as far afield as the dynasty and the council, these horses that come from here are famed for their reliability and just general quality. This is where they come from, is Ultima. And finally, we have the territory of Ambarino. It's a central eastern territory, so it's off to the east, sort of inland a bit. Fairly pleasant climate, and it's also the smallest of the territories. There's nothing really, it's just kind of there. And it's known as it's the site of the Great Seats. It's the place where the Republic of Ambarino was conceived. So this is where people from all over Ambarino first came together to sit down and discuss their problems, and decided to form the 14 territories initially, and then to unite them. So this is where the Republic was formed and founded and thought of and built, were here in the Great Seats. And is also a rumoured site of a second visitation. If you recall from the council video, there was an event known as the Visitation or the Appearance, where the Pure Ones showed themselves in Mentura, which is the religious capital, appeared to the people there. And Mentura is therefore the religious and political capital. It's sort of the holy site, if you will. There's rumours of a second visitation over here in Ambarino, but these are rumours. Again, Ambarino isn't as religious or all about the Pure Ones as the council. So these are rumours. No one can really prove that it happened, but it's local legend that there was another visitation and it happened here, which some believe is why there's a following for the Pure Ones in Ambarino in the first place. And there was never an appearance in the dynasty because, again, in the beginning video, when the Pure Ones arrived at Kelamentura full of wrath and ruin, they saw, oh, hang on, there's people here who worship us and who don't worship us, and okay, give them pause. That's where you get. So that's why they didn't ever bother going to the dynasty, because, well, no one worships us there, so why would we go? So that's everything. So there we go. So that's the trilogy is complete. We now have a video on the Council of Mentura, the Salazan dynasty, and finally the Republic of Ambarino. Again, I hope this is interesting, both for anyone watching this and also for my players. I hope you enjoy this, and until next time, adventurers, see ya.